Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm gonna talk to you about my yoga journey and why and how I decided to become a yoga teacher. Before we start, subscribe to the red button down below and like this video because it helps my channel massively. And let's go ahead and start. So I first tried yoga when I was 18 years old. It was, I think, my first year of uni, and for some reason, I don't remember exactly what happened, but basically me and one of my best friends decided to try yoga in a yoga studio in our neighborhood. We went to the studio, we signed up, and then we started taking yoga lessons. I remember how hard I thought it was. I was exhausted but super happy after each class. I felt like a different person. I remember how I couldn't manage to do even the basics. It was like impossible. It was impossible to hold a downward facing dog. My arms were shaking. I remember sweating throughout the whole class, like sometimes wishing it was over. But no, I don't want to scare you away, of course, but it was my first experience, yeah? And take into consideration that I wasn't fit. I wasn't doing anything before that. I wasn't going to the gym, I wasn't training, so it was hard for me at that point, but I really enjoyed it. At that studio, I tried a few different classes and a few different teachers. Although back then, obviously, I had no idea about what Hatha yoga is or what Vinyasa yoga is, Iyengar, etc., etc. The founder of that studio is an Iyengar graduate. So the vibe of the studio was more Iyengar and Hatha. So it was very focused on details and alignment, which gave me a very, very good foundation in yoga. To be honest, I'm really grateful for that. I learned the hard way, but it was worth it because even years after I left that studio, I remember advice the teachers gave me there that made a huge impact on my style and also my teaching style and how I was as a student and a teacher. As I was saying, I don't remember how long I stayed in the studio. I don't think it was for too long because it was quite expensive for me at that point. Bear in mind I was a student and I didn't have the money like to stay in a very expensive yoga studio. But it was a great experience. I tried a few different teachers and some of them were super hardcore, some of them were more relaxed, some of them more dynamic, some of them more spiritual. And I remember we also had a couple of great meditation seminars, let's say, not seminars, it was like an experience. So we would go on a weekend evening, it was the winter, it was dark, and we would have candles and they would do a guided meditation for us, and it was one of the best experiences. I remember it so fondly. I wish I could have this experience again, probably in another studio. So I'm not gonna talk about meditation a lot in this video because that might be another separate video, my meditation journey, how and when I started, how it's going, etc. So I'm gonna focus more on yoga. So after that studio, I was like, my whole life I was on and off of yoga. So after that, I had probably a break, if I remember correctly, and then I was going wherever I could find a yoga class that I could go, I would go, but I wouldn't go regularly. For example, there was a uni gym that had also yoga classes, but it was quite far and it was totally packed and overbooked every time, so it was very hard for me to go. I went like a few times. The teacher was great. I don't remember if it was Hatha or Vinyasa, but the class was great. Then after that, I had a few classes in local gyms, not studios, but it was gyms. So I had a few classes there, nothing too special that is worth remembering, because some teachers might not even have been qualified. That's how I felt like for a couple of classes, which is weird. And you know how gyms are, sometimes you might find a great teacher that has passion for teaching yoga and is going to deliver a great class even in a full packed gym class studio, but other times it's not like as detailed, or the vibe and the atmosphere is not the best. After that, I didn't have like any other yoga class maybe for a year or so, until I came to London to do my master's degree. And I remember again, there was a gym membership that I got for the uni gym. They were having yoga classes there, so I started going to yoga once again. Woo! The teachers were surprisingly great. I remember them very, very fondly. They were very attentive, very gentle. The vibe was great. They knew how to create a very, very calming atmosphere, and their knowledge was great. So I started going again while I was studying. It was also like an opportunity for me to relax because I was studying constantly. And then I think I had another almost like a year or 10 months of a break. Then I started doing yoga by myself at home because YouTube became more popular. Yoga on YouTube became more popular, and I remember I started practicing with Boho Beautiful at home. She had some great lessons. She still has. I like her way of teaching, her teaching style. So I started doing some yoga here and there in a British flat with a carpet. So it was very weird to put your mat on the carpet, and it's not great to do that because you need something stable. The more, the fluffier and the softer the surface that you are having your hands on is, the worst for your wrists, because then all of the weight goes on your wrists and not on your whole palm. Anyway, that was parenthesis. So I was doing yoga by myself at home on the carpet. At some point I was teaching in a school, I remember, and there was a teacher in the school that was also a yoga teacher. Hi Natalie, if you're watching this. And I think I joined her class once or twice. It was a lovely class. And then there was, I think, another small break until the most exciting time of all is when I was working in an office a couple of years later, I believe, or like a year later, and they decided to get a teacher to have private yoga lessons in the office. Hallelujah! Oh my God, that was amazing. It was a great experience. It was very much needed. If you are an office worker, you will understand. It's a blessing to have yoga in the workplace, because you just change your outfit and you go straight into yoga. You don't have to go home to change or go and drive and commute and waste time. I know that the vibe is not the best always, or maybe you don't like the environment, or you would rather have a different room, but I'd rather have the option of yoga in the workplace rather than not having it at all. So they get a teacher to come and teach in the office for us. It was once a week. The teacher was one of the most amazing teachers I've had in my life. Apart from the fact that she was very knowledgeable and she was always like researching new things or trying to incorporate new things into her lessons and her teachings, it was also that our styles clicked a lot. because you might not resonate with a teacher who's spiritual and you're not spiritual, or she's very dynamic and you're not that dynamic, but our styles clicked. It was a match. It was a match made in heaven, and I learned so much from Lee. It was a great period for me, and it helped me a lot with the stress I was dealing with at work. So at that point, while we were having lessons with Lee in the office, yoga classes, sorry, I think it was, no, it was before that, like a few months before that, before we started yoga in the office, I started thinking more and more often about the idea of me doing yoga teacher training. Back then I wasn't thinking about doing it for as a job, like at all. I was trying to find a way to get to know more about yoga. So after a few classes with Lee, I mentioned it to her that I was thinking of doing a yoga teacher training sometime in the near future. So she was very, very nice, and she was giving me information about studios or about styles, what to watch out for, and then she the best thing that happened to me is that because she knew that I wanted to train in yoga, I would ask loads of questions all the time. Why is this like this, and what do we do like that, and blah, 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 whatever you can think of. And she would reply to me. We would have great conversations. We would chat after class as well, and also she knew my limits, and she was pushing me to the point where I could advance. She was correcting me a bit more strictly than the others, but it's exactly what I needed and what I wanted, because at that point I felt like I was very, very close to yoga. It was giving me something that I had never experienced before. I wanted to deepen my practice. I wanted to know everything, especially about philosophy, the philosophy of yoga, its origins, more about meditation, more about the spiritual part of yoga. And I was like a sponge. I was getting things in, like, constantly, wherever and whenever I could. So Lee was a great source and inspiration for me. So yeah, at that point I wasn't necessarily thinking about teaching yoga. I wanted to know as much about yoga as I could, and because I was already a huge advocate of yoga, I wanted to have the knowledge to pass that on to other people. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to be able to teach people and advocate for yoga in a more official way, if that makes sense. Because I was already telling people whatever I knew about yoga. Whenever they had questions, they would ask me something. I was preaching yoga to fully absolute beginners. I was, wherever I stood, I was preaching about yoga and its benefits and how it changed my life. So basically that's what happened until the office decided to stop the yoga lessons because the attendance was very, very low. Basically we ended up being just two people, me and my husband, because we worked in the same place at that point. So it was like a private lesson for us. Then I started preparing for my yoga teacher training. I had decided when I would do it. So then I found a local gym. It was the Better Gym, if you know it. They had so many yoga classes, and I was going there two or three times a week, I think. I was trying as many different teachers as I could because I wanted to get to know different teaching styles, different teacher styles. Like, even if you're teaching the same kind of yoga, let's say vinyasa yoga like I am, even in Vinyasa, different teachers will have different teaching styles, personal styles. So I was trying to try different styles of yoga, try different teachers, and also train and get to know more things before my yoga teacher training. It was then with the office classes and the gym classes that I saw also a difference in my body and in my mind. It was like a transformation that many people will talk to you about, and you're like, yeah, right, everyone's talking about that, but I don't know if it's true. It is true. It's like you're going through something that changes you, and you don't have exactly the words to describe. It's an amazing experience, but unless you experience it, you won't be able to fully grasp what it is. Yoga changed me like forever. Now I don't feel the way I felt back then for a couple of years when this was all a very intense transformational experience and spiritual experience for me, because I guess I got used to it, and now I'm in this state. I'm not in the transition state or transformation state, so that's why it feels like more natural to me now. But back then it was super exciting, and how can I say it? It was like an awe-inspiring experience. So yeah, that was it more or less, and that was everything up to the point where I decided to start my yoga teacher training. But that can be another video. I can tell you my experience in the yoga teacher training. I have already done a very nice video about tips and advice if you're thinking of doing a yoga teacher training, what to look for in a yoga teacher training, how to choose one, etc, etc. So I'm gonna put it in the description down below and in the cards above. And we're gonna talk about the yoga teacher training in another video. Last thing I wanted to say is that until my yoga teacher training, I was practicing yoga for 10 years on and off, yeah. And the last 2 years before my training, it was regular. That was the last thing I wanted to mention, but it's not essential if you want to do a yoga teacher training. We had people with almost no experience come to the training and they did great. So that was it for today. Let me know if you liked the video. Let me know what your experience with yoga is. I want to hear it so much. So let's get the discussion going in the comments down below. Again, like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the red button, share this video if you liked it, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!